Before the show starts, this is a reminder to all our listeners that the podcast is an open discussion forum and not meant to be used as a source of direct professional help. We at Panic Stations UK would always urge anybody listening to go seek advice from their GP, that is their doctor, a counsellor or a therapist. The podcast is, however, a place for people to share experiences and realise that you are not alone. Due to the subject matter discussed in the shows, some episodes may have explicit language in. I warn listeners as this is meant to be a realistic look at mental health. As such, you may find that some of the guests use some pretty colourful language. I ask all listeners just to freely accept this and to honour the guests that are on the show. It's their journey and it's their freedom of speech, and we at Panic Stations UK would never do anything to discourage that. Many thanks and enjoy the show. Hello and welcome to the very first episode of Panic Stations UK. I'm Chris Jones, I'm the host and the co-creator, as it were, because I got the idea from lots and lots of friends saying that I should share experiences and see if I could come up with some sort of show to discuss mental health issues. So here it is. You'll have to forgive any sort of teething problems as we start this journey. It's a bit of a weird one. Obviously, the very beginning of this podcast came across incredibly sort of tight-fisted and very grr. And the reason for that is obviously we just need to make sure people are fully aware what we're all about. Right, I just wanted to just say about one of the things you'll realise from the get-go is that we have a very, very relaxed atmosphere here at Panic Stations UK. And the reason we're doing that is because I want anybody who wants to participate, so that could include you, the listeners. You just have to get in contact with us so I can give you a email address a bit later on, so you feel free to contact us on that. And for the people who participate, just to be a bit more relaxed, because I mean, we're going to be bearing our souls a little bit here. We're going to be discussing the issues that have affected us for some cases years, for some cases they've just happened, and obviously, you know, the last thing people want to be doing when they're bearing the souls is to be in some sort of show where we analyse everything that they've said and done. And that's, again, not what this is about. We're not a professional sort of therapy, counselling session or anything like that. It's a big sort of community for people just to discuss what has messed with them, what plagues their lives, what issues they've had to live with, the experiences they've had that could possibly help others that are listening into the show. So it's really a big community. And another thing we want to do as well is obviously to make it a bit more free thinking and a bit more relaxed, is we're going to sort of showcase other people's materials, and we'll give some shout outs like creative wise. And what I mean by that is if you're in a band, if you've got another podcast, if you've got an independent film that you've got going on, maybe a book, anything like that, you give us a shout via the email address, and we'll happily do what we can to sort of plug it a little bit for you, because obviously I think one of the most major things regarding a lot of mental health issues is a good outlet for all this is being creative, and I think we need to sort of embrace that. So if anybody has anything they want to share, music, anything like that, please feel more than welcome. I'm all for plugging it, and it doesn't matter what kind of genre music it is. It can be anything you want, so feel free. I mean, it can be rock music, I'm all down with that. It could be folk music, it could be opera, it could be rap, it could be a poem, it could be anything, so it's all good. So I've got a lot of things lined up for the future episodes at the moment. I'm going to have my first guest be turning up a little bit later in the show, and I think you're going to enjoy it. So stick with me, stick through the teething problems, the babbling and the rambling and the shambling and the silly things, and just realise that obviously this isn't a show that mocks mental health; it embraces it, and this is something that I think we should all do, because we live in a very dark, cold world, my friends, and if we let it get to us, we can crush our souls. So the best thing to do is to, as I say, embrace it and work out coping mechanisms and enjoy the great things in life, because there are hundreds and millions and billions and trillions and billions and everything else. God knows what kind of number I can kind of quantify it in. Things that are so worth it, but sometimes when you have personal issues of a mental health nature, sometimes you don't see it. So if this show can show what other people have gone through and they can identify with some stuff, then that's absolutely fantastic, because then they can sort of see the light, hopefully, at the end of the tunnel. So don't give up on yourself, and don't give up on other people as well. So like I said before, it's good that we've kind of got this idea where people can discuss free and about the situations they found themselves. And if you hear a subject matter that you like on the show, again, feel free to drop us a line and explain, what you agreed with. Some of you can, by all means, I'm totally welcome to criticism. If you're going, that rambling fool Chris who hosts it, he really didn't make me feel comfortable, and I didn't feel that the information that other people mentioned was relevant, then fair enough. But some people might come on and you might be going, thank God for this, because hey, this is fantastic. I recognise some of the issues that I've had, and I've never been able to sort of explain it or perhaps vocalise it in such a way that I could express that to people that I've needed to tell how I've been feeling. And you might be able to recognise that with some of the guests that come on and discuss the issues that they've had and they've suffered with. So stick with us. Like I say, there's a lot of teething problems being the first episode of hopefully many podcasts in the future. Now, I've already said it several times about dropping us a line, but I haven't told you how. If you want to drop us a line, you can drop us a line on panicstationsuk@yahoo.co.uk. That is panicstationsuk@yahoo.co.uk. Again, if you want to feel free to send any stuff in, by all means, we'll be open to discuss anything. That's fantastic. And if you want a guest on the show, all means. So please feel welcome to get in contact. Now, a lot of you won't know who I am. Some of the people that are listening may already know me. They might be friends or family, or people that are suddenly very much aware that this podcast has started to exist via messages via Facebook and the like. And you might be thinking, right, great, well, this is all very well and good, but what do you know about mental health? I mean, why are you babbling on about issues that have happened? And I don't think it would be fair of me in some respects to not divulge a little bit about myself. And obviously subsequent episodes obviously will delve a little bit more with some of my prior experiences where it's relevant. I don't want this to be a one big oh woe is me fest, but I think if you know a little bit about me, it might help ease you to thinking, well, actually this guy does come from a place where I've either been or I can identify with, or at least he knows roughly what goes on. So I don't want to be a hypocrite. I'm free to explain my personal stories. I won't divulge too much just yet, obviously, like I just said before. But I'll give a kind of a way of explaining that things do get better and how you can cope, and that you're not alone. Like I said at the beginning of the podcast, you're not alone. All right. So here we go. My name's Chris Jones, like I said before, and I have suffered with anxiety and depression disorders. These have all been coming from a stress-related disorder, and these symptoms that led towards the disorder really rose their head mainly when I was at university. I'm 33 years old now. When I was roughly 21, coming on 22, I had my very first panic attack, and that was a life-changing experience, and I'm still suffering with them to this day. I deal with it in my own way. I've sought therapy. I've seen professionals about it. I've learned from the experiences shared by others who've been kind enough to give me hints and tips. And I basically suffered my first ever panic attack when I was roughly 21, 22 years old. And where it came from, I was in a very, very stressful place at the time. Really horrible place. I had to look after myself financially and obviously domestically for many years prior to this, since I was about 16 years old. And because of that, I never really had the chance to kind of learn to relax a little bit. And when I hit university, there were so many people that obviously hadn't walked a mile in my shoes. They came from relatively, I say this with air quotes, normal backgrounds, because there's no such thing as normal. I'll talk about that later. And yeah, basically what happened was I'd been under a phenomenal amount of stress for a number of years, but I couldn't identify that. I didn't realise it. And because I think of my age, and because of the fact that I'd kept myself going, trying to sort of force myself to be better and go, yes, I can do this, I can do university by myself, I can do these things by myself, I don't need anyone, yada, yada, yada. Because of that, I think I put an innate amount of pressure on myself, and that caused me to topple. It wasn't just that. There was a number of things that were going on in my life at the time. Subsequently, that I had just come out of a very, very abusive, emotionally abusive relationship. And that, I think, was the catalyst that made me start to have a bit of a possibly drink issue. I think 2 weeks I drank very heavily for about 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks, something like that. It's getting a bit longer. 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks. No, it was 3 months. No, it was around about 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks. And what had actually happened was the person I was with had left me. There was somebody very, very close to me, friend-wise, who'd almost passed away on the other side of the country. He'd had a very, very serious medical issue happen, and he's a very, very well-loved person. And there was the whole gang that I went to college with, and new friends, old friends, all sorts of people, all coming to cheer this guy on to make sure he was okay, because that's how loved he is. And he still is to this day. He's a lovely fella. And thankfully he worked through it, obviously. But there was a lot of stress, and because of the medical issue that had happened, it'd come out of nowhere. And being a young man, you wouldn't expect somebody of that age to have had the thing that happened to them. And that got into my head. I think that made me really, really kind of suddenly appreciate that we're not immortal. And I was trying to get myself through college or university. I'd already put myself through college. I had the financial pressures of having a full-time job and having to financially support myself, along with the fact that I just had my heart really badly broken, and it was the tail end of an extremely abusive relationship. Again, that's another podcast a bit further down the line. I think we can do some podcasts on that particular end of my life. However, I found myself drinking, and I found myself calling a friend of mine in Canada, who I love dearly, and kind of being a bit woe is me with her. And thankfully she had the strength to turn around and say to me that she loved me and that she didn't want me to push myself in this bad direction, because it was poisonous. It was going to be poisonous for me. So when that happened, I realised it was like a wake-up call in my head. An alarm bell started ringing, and I realised that doing what I was doing was so detrimental and so stupid that I should really just embrace life and stop being silly and stop drinking. Now, I was getting through about 1 litre of scotch a day. So to quantify that, that's, at least 14, 15 litres of scotch. The idea of drinking that much now, just like half a bottle of scotch, makes me feel queasy. Being a young man doing it was really, really stupid. Dangerous, very, very dangerous, and I'm very, very thankful that it didn't kill me. However, a side effect of that, it shocked my nerves. I was on the edge, I was unrested, I was already anxious, and I was already incredibly stressed. And having finished this conversation with my friend in Canada, I'd thought, I need to deal with this. I need to deal with this in a sensible way, and I'm not going to let the people I love down. So I went to the sink and I poured away what was left of this whiskey and went to go to bed. Now, at the time, one of the things I liked to do was watch TV in bed until I fell asleep, because I was just it was easier to do that. And being a huge nerd, I'm a huge nerd, and you will find this out. I love my comics, I love my TV shows, I love film, things like that. I decided to put Angel on, as in Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel, the series Angel. So I put that on, and as I was watching it, I started to feel quite peculiar. I couldn't quite understand what it was. I felt edgy, but I was awake. I didn't feel like I was going to be sick, but I couldn't rest. I was really irritable and very agitated. So I went downstairs and I thought, well, maybe I need to have a glass of water. Maybe I'll be fine just having this glass of water. So I tried to drink this glass of water, and I think maybe I'll be fine. So I start talking to myself, kind of to reassure myself. And I'm like, oh my, I feel pretty bad. No, I'll be fine. Just have another glass of water. Had another glass of water. Still felt a bit funny. Went to the toilet. Fine. Now I'm starting to feel very alert, almost like edge, really on the edge, almost like I'd been doing some exercise and I was very much awake, not like it had been drinking and I'd been up for hours and for the last couple of weeks it had been a mess emotionally and physically. I felt completely on edge, very, very sharp, and not in a good way, in a very alerted, anxious way. And I rung up the NHS Direct. At the time, there was an out-of-hours call service with medical help on the end of the phone, obviously giving you hints and tips if you need it, should you need it. And I called up explaining the situation. Now, I was convinced, because I was starting at this point, to get pins and needles. And a lot of you suffer from panic attacks out there. I think you probably understand where I'm coming from when I say I was unconsciously, rapidly breathing. And I wasn't even aware of it, as I say, unconscious, rapidly breathing. So this had started me getting these pins and needles. I was very, very shocked. I was like, I'm starting to get pins and needles, but hang on a second, I can feel my hands, but I've got pins and needles in them. So I start getting concerned. I'm thinking, hang on a second, am I having a stroke? Is there some sort of mental issue there? Like, am I having an embolism or something? What the hell's going on? So I start really thinking about it. The more I think about it, the more worried I'm getting. And of course, having never suffered from a panic attack before, totally not realising, the more I was thinking about it, the more it was digging me in this hole of anxiety and starting to worry and set off the panic attack. So I call up NHS Direct and explain the situation. They say to me, look, can you do these following tests? Can you lift your hands up above your head? Can you feel them? Can you feel like a light scratch across the back of the hand, and all the things, checking my senses to make sure that I wasn't having some sort of stroke or a seizure or something. And they were like, well, the nurse, she was a lovely lady. She wasn't abrasive or anything like that. She just went, Chris, darling, I think you're having a panic attack. You need to try and calm down. Are you by yourself? Because I was at university, I think it was a university half-term holiday, and obviously, as I said before, wherever I had to go, I had to live, and I was looking after myself financially and obviously socially, so that meant keeping a roof over my head. And the rest of my housemates, I had 3 other housemates that lived in the house, and the rest of them had gone, bar one really nice bloke, still friends with him to this day, really good guy. And he was asleep, because this was early in the morning, really early in the morning. It was like sort of 1:30 in the morning. So I'm like, yeah, I do have somebody with me. And they were like, well, if it gets worse, go get them. Otherwise, just try and breathe in and out of a brown paper bag or makeshift plastic one, anything like that. But make sure, there's a little hole in it so you don't, suffocate. And if it doesn't get any better, if it's really, really bad, go to A&E. But I think you're fine, it's just having a panic attack. Now, I'm just going to stop the story right there and just kind of... I think anybody growing up sort of in recent years, anybody born from any time before 2000 will be able to tell you that growing up, the mental health services, especially in the UK, haven't been really, really easy to access and to get diagnoses for things. And I think we're only just really scratching the surface of mental health awareness, which is really sad. It's both good because people are finally starting to pay attention, but it's bad because obviously there's still a lot of work to go, and a lot of people don't understand it. People sometimes think they're faking it, or they go with what little they know about mental health from the only sources where they can get it, and that's stories of other people, which is kind of one of the reasons why the podcast is kind of important. And on top of that, anything they'd seen media-wise. Now, as a kid, one of my favourite films was a film called Inner Space, directed by Joe Dante. Told you, see, I'm a film fan. And it has the wonderful Martin Short in it, and he plays a character that's clearly got a stress issue. He's strung out, he's got a lot of psychological issues, and he has a panic attack several times throughout the film. And because it's Martin Short, and because he was such a fantastic comedian, comedic performer, he's a fantastic actor, but he's a good comedic performer, incredible one. And what he'd done was he made panic attacks funny. He made them funny because something to mock, because you're like, oh, but you look at him, he's fine, he's climbing the walls with his feet, and he's lying upside down on a chair, breathing in a bag, and it's silly, because we know he's okay and he's a nice guy and everything's fine. Unfortunately, in the real world, where people watch this kind of subject matter, so this kind of material on that subject matter, they can start to believe that's what a panic attack is. Like, oh, it's fine, don't worry, you're not, it's not as bad as you think it is, and it's fine. Unfortunately, that's how I viewed panic attacks. So when the nurse had told me, going back to my story, see, there is a reason, going around a long tangent to get to this, I thought, well, hang on a second, I'm not Martin Short in Inner Space. I don't panic about anything. Everything's fine. I don't know. No, it's all good. The nurse, again, reassured me and said, look, you're having a panic attack. I'm 99.999999999% certain that's what you're having. Again, if it gets really bad, go get your housemate or go to an A&E. So I go upstairs, because after I put the phone down, obviously, go upstairs, get very, very tense. I'm like, should I wake him up? No. Oh my God. And I'm convinced now that because the way I'm feeling, I'm thinking I'm going to have a stroke or I'm going to die or God knows what. So I run along the landing, and I only chuckle because I look back with kind of a grin on my face, because I've got to that stage now. It's nothing funny about panic attacks. Don't get me wrong. I am not saying they're funny. Of course they're not. But from my personal experience, for what I did next, again, it's that Martin Short character from Inner Space. So I run along the landing, like really frantically, huffing and puffing, going, oh my God, I'm going to die, everything's a problem, oh my God. So I run up to this door. I virtually kick the door, I kick it open, but I virtually kicked it off the bloody hinges. Went right to the side of my mate's bed, whacked the lights on. The poor guy's asleep, so he has no idea what's going on. So some lunatic, as it were, runs in, whacks the light on. The light comes on. He's like, what the hell's going on? Like in bed going, huh. I kneel down to the very bottom of his bed, curl up with my arms around my knees, and I start rocking backwards and forwards. I literally can't even make this up. This is how frantic I was, because I'd never experienced a panic attack before, and it was absolutely horrendous, and I was shaking backwards and forwards, and I was literally, he couldn't make any sense from me. So I turned around to my friend, and I'm like there going, I'm having a panic attack, I want to die, I don't know what I'm going to do, help me, I'm going to die, I'm having a panic attack, I don't know what I'm going to do, I think I'm going to have a stroke, I'm going to go to the hospital. And he's like, whoa, hang on, what? And then I go, I'm having a panic attack, I think I'm going to die, I'm going to go to the hospital, I need you, but I'm like kind of like commentating on a race, almost, a horse race, and he had to literally ask me a couple of times, because he was like, okay, Chris, right, what are you talking about? I explained to him, I kind of forced myself to calm down and go, having panic attack, I don't think it is, called NHS Direct, I think I'm having a stroke, I'm dying, help me, please help me. I was terrified. So, my housemate very kindly and very patiently goes to get dressed. He tells me to go downstairs and he'll come down. We didn't have any vehicle, so we call a taxi. He calls a taxi to come and pick us up outside our house to take us to the A&E. I'm meanwhile, sat on the floor outside the house. And I'm looking at these houses along the road with the lights on. The ones that have the lights on, obviously, because it's so early in the morning. There's some people, because it was a student street, that were still awake and open and fine, and some people that weren't. And I'm looking at these lights, and at that precise moment, because your mind... I think the best way to describe my first panic attack, and I don't know if anybody else can relate to this, when I had my first panic attack, it felt like somebody had got a small explosive device, crammed it into my brain, and set it off. My mind couldn't focus on anything. It was pure terror. It was... I don't even think I could quantify it in words. So I sat down, and literally it was like segments of memories are floating above my head, and I'm trying to grab the memories, these things that are going through my head, and put them together to make one cognitive experience, to one cognitive thing, so I can focus on that and remember things and talk clearly and make sense and not be so confused, because I'm so confused and terrified. And I sat there and I looked at these windows, and the ones that the lights were on, and I was utterly convinced at that moment in time. Now, this is a completely different debate altogether, and I don't think really needs to be in a podcast for our particular one. However, I was utterly convinced at that moment in time that when you die, there is a heaven and there is a hell, and I was utterly convinced that I was going to die and go to hell. That's how full of anxiety and so panicked and confused I was. And now that a lot of people might be like, wow, that's pretty intense, that's a bit weird, but why would you think that? I don't know. I really don't know. I think I was blaming myself through all the bad situations that had happened. And because I'd had no control over them, and there was a number of bad experiences. I mean, I lost a family member as well, very, very close to the start of this panic attack. Within about 2-3 weeks prior to that. So it all happened at the same time. There was like a loss of a family member, my friend critically ill in hospital. I'd lost my girlfriend at the time. She'd left me, and she'd really messed with my head. And on top of that, I'd been drinking, so I was a frayed mess. I was a bit of a shell and a bit stressed. So there's a lot of negativity there, and I can only kind of make sense of that moment in time by thinking maybe that negativity had spurred something in my head that made me instantly think, right, I'm a bad person. The reality was, I wasn't a bad person at all. I know I'm not a bad person. I'm still not a bad person. I wasn't a bad person then. The reality is, I was a very desperate person who needed help. And obviously, you're not thinking clearly when you have a panic attack, let alone your first panic attack, and you don't even know what it's like. You've never had one before. So I'm convinced, as I say, I'm going to go to hell. And all I'm thinking is just one more chance to prove. I just wish I had one more chance to prove I'm not a bad guy, am I? I must be a bad guy because I've been left alone. No, I'm terrible. I'm a terrible guy. Oh no, just one more chance. I need to prove to people, because I was away from my family. My family were on the other side of the country, and I was all alone. So wherever I was doing it all alone. So that fear, it was palpable. You could feel it everywhere. It was almost radiating off me. So fortunately, this taxi turns up, and it picks myself and my housemate up, and it takes us to the A&E. I get into A&E, and I'm slightly relieved, but I'm not. I'm happy that I'm in a hospital, because at least in my head, I'm thinking, well, there are medical professionals here, I'm okay in that respect. They start asking me questions at the reception, like anybody would in an A&E. They're like, oh, what's your name, your date of birth, where do you come from, and everything else. So I'm there, and my housemate's trying to deal with it all, because obviously I'm not making much sense. And all I'm thinking is, I have a sense of urgency here, man. What the hell are they doing? Messing around, discussing really asinine stuff when I need to be seen. I'm going to die. Help me. the person behind the counter had obviously seen this many, many times before and was just kind of very deadpan, was like, yeah, okay, whatever, sort of thing. So it wasn't exactly reassuring. I gave my student ID, which had the majority of my details, to my housemate, and like my date of birth and whatnot, and my full name. And obviously he lived with me, so he knew the address. And I sat down in the waiting area about 3-4 feet behind my housemate while he's trying to discuss stuff. And I'm there, and I'm looking at the ground, and I'm going, please let somebody see me soon, I'm going to die, oh God, please help me. And eventually, after waiting for about 15-20 minutes, eventually it stopped. I didn't fully stop. It started to slow down, and the fog that had made me so confused and so terrified started to lift. And obviously what happened was this massive shake-up of emotions, like somebody getting your brain in a snow globe and shaking it up, and the snow had settled. So I'd had time to calm down, physically anyway. And my brain was obviously exhausted. And the doctor saw me and explained, yeah, you were having a panic attack and this is what happened, and this is the A&E doctor. And I walked back with my housemate, and we smoked at the time, so I had a cigarette with him. And I realised I'd become a mess, and I told him that on the walk back home. I was like, I'm a mess. Where did this come from? I didn't expect this. I can't believe I've done this to myself. And I was ashamed. I was ashamed I'd let myself fall, as it were, that I'd put myself in such a state, that I'd abused myself in such a way that I'd started suffering in this way, which made things infinitely worse. Now, obviously, as I've grown older and I've experienced it more, and I've gone to see professional help, and I've dealt with that, I understand it wasn't my fault. I mean, some of it was, of course, the drinking didn't help. However, it was really an internal echo of how I was really thinking about myself. At the time, I was a bit of self-loathing mixed with a feeling that my life at the time, that was the best it was going to ever be, and it wouldn't get any better, and loneliness. And over the course of the remaining time I had at university, if it wasn't for the love, and it was love, and it wasn't for the strength, and again it was strength as well, of the kind of people that I knew as friends, I don't think I would have made it out the other end in the respects of finishing university. They helped me finish university. They helped me come to terms with things. And when I was feeling bad, or was starting to feel I was going to have a panic attack, I was looked after by them. One of the things, the side effects afterwards, was because I'd had the one panic attack, it was almost like, when is it going to happen again? And that fear, the fear of thinking, when is this going to happen again, was so terrifying that it affected everything I was doing. So I'd go to bed, but I couldn't sleep with the lights off. The moment the lights went off and it went dark, that was it. And it got to the point I couldn't even sleep in my own bed. I had to sleep on the floor. I had a beanbag for a pillow, and I had my duvet, and I would keep the TV on with the light off and the TV on, and that way at least the light was off. But of course my brain wasn't resting, because there was all this excess information subconsciously being processed by the TV playing and films playing, or TV shows I'd put on, and on my video recorder that was linked up. And obviously once the video recorder turned itself off, it would rewind itself, and I put the TV on sleep. And sometimes if I was still awake when the TV had turned itself off the timer, I'd turn it back on again and do the whole process again. And the only way I could stop the excess light coming from the TV was by covering my eyes with part of my blanket. So I was in a pretty bad way. And I was very, very lucky, step by step, to get myself, retrain my thought process to a point where I could eventually sleep with the lights off. And that wasn't until I actually left university. It wasn't until I met another person who was very special to me, and is still very special to me. Is still very good. We're friends now, but she was fantastic for me in the respects that she helped me learn how to sleep without the lights being on. and I got used to it, and it helped a lot. But I was a complete mess, and that first panic attack shaped so many years when I was getting used to having panic attacks, and I think I've had probably about 100 panic attacks at least in the last 10 years. However, they've all varied in degrees, and in my head I can quite easily count down a top 10 of the worst, and I think people that suffer with an anxiety disorder can do that as well. And it's very, very common. I didn't realise how common it was. And when you have one issue, when you feel the absence of hope, when you feel so run down, because it mentally exhausts you, anxiety issues, it can very easily stem into depression. And that's something we can talk about in later panic attack episodes of Panic Stations UK. I'll put my teeth back in. So, yeah, I have suffered, and I know what it's like to suffer with things like that. I've got a lot of special guests coming up in the next God knows how many episodes, because there's so much I could easily, even if I did just the guests I have lined up at the moment, 20 episodes. And we will cover a variety of situations, and we will cover a variety of topics, and a variety of mental health conditions. And we've also got some mental health professionals. They've taken the time out to come in and obviously discuss things that they have seen, and some of the things that are common. So it's going to be not so much a lot of fun in a really twisted way, but it'll be an interesting insight into mental health. Might even give yourself some inner clarity. So think about it that way. Now, I will go on my story over the course of the next bunch of podcasts, but until then, I think I'm going to get to my next guest, or my first guest. So that's an honour, first guest for a number one podcast. So this is all good. So what we'll do, we're just going to take a quick break, and then we're going to sit down with a very dear friend of mine who suffered with anxiety and depression issues throughout his life as well, Mr. Benjamin Coker. So just bear with us, and be back in a second. Fantastic. Welcome back. Just want to do a quick shout out to John Cross. He's the man behind some of the themes you're hearing today. Really, really appreciate him because he's been my right-hand man when it's come to setting the podcast up. So cheers, John, mate. You've been fantastic. He's kind of a bit like, hey, you know what I was saying earlier, that I'm a big comic book nerd? Here's a big comic book nerd reference for you, for those who like comic books. Right, he's a bit like the Wolverine of podcasting, in the fact that he seems to be in every single podcast ever made. He does so much that he's just in loads of different things, and unbelievable. And that's a little riff on the fact that Wolverine's in so many different comic books, for those who don't know what I'm talking about. And now you can secretly go, geek, nerd, it's all good. But please, by all means, check out John's other works. It's fantastic. He does a film review show called The After Movie Diner, which is quite possibly my favourite film review show ever made. Then there's Dr. Action and the Kick-Ass Kid. There's a new one coming out soon called Cross Talk. It's a new sort of comedy interview show. It's absolutely fantastic, and that's with the Second Unit Podcast Network. And I can't miss out the other one he's just been doing recently, which is the B-Movie Bargain Bin. All fabulous podcasts. Check them out. They're fantastic. You can get them on iTunes. Rate them. Check them out. All good. So now, as I said before, I've got my first ever guest in here with me for the first ever episode. He's a dear friend of mine, known for many, many years. He's been with me through thick and thin with some of the stuff that I've had to to go through, and I'll be bringing some of my other friends that have witnessed and been there through me through thick and thin as well. But this particular man has seen me with my podcasts, getting ready and everything else, and he went, "Yeah, I'll go up and be the brave person to be number one to be interviewed and go forward with my personal experiences." So it's taken a lot of courage to go forward. I want everybody to welcome warmly and respectfully Mr. Benjamin Coker. Hello.
Hi.
How you doing?
I'm very well.
Good. Very good to have you on the show. Very good to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
First one, milestone.
Yes.
How you feeling?
A little bit nervous, if I'm honest.
Really?
But yeah, my first ever podcast.
Your first ever podcast.
Yeah.
We've got your podcast cherry popped.
Yes.
Absolutely wicked. Brilliant. That's absolutely stunning. Right, okay. Well, obviously, as you know, with the whole thing about Panic Stations UK, one of the things we wanted to do is we wanted to discuss lots of varying mental health issues. I'm no stranger to them. Is it fair to say that you're no stranger to you?
I'm not a stranger at all. No. It's been with me for a very, very long time. I still remember to this day the day that I had my first panic attack, which was at school, in assembly, with the deputy head on the stage, and there was a box with a light. There was like a heartbeat monitor, but there was a light going up and down, and I kept staring at that, and I suddenly felt myself just sink into myself, and my face went incredibly red, and like you said before, the fear just grips you, and you sit there. And I thought, oh, I can't take this anymore. I don't know what's going on. So I just said, put my hand up in front of the entire school and said, I think I'm going to be sick. And I fled the hall. And I sat in the sick room until assembly was finished, and then I went back to my classes. But ever since then, whilst I was at that school, I tried to avoid any lessons, particularly French, because we had a particularly she wasn't bad, but she was very boisterous teacher, French teacher, and I tried to avoid that at all costs, and also assembly as well. So I'd try and make up some excuse to get out of it. And then luckily, my parents took me away from that school and put me in another school, where I blossomed and everything was fine. The only time I ever had any panic attacks there was when we had to go into the school I was at before was a state school. So the only time I had any issues in my new school was when we had to go and do training for the Duke of Edinburgh Award, because we were just about to go on a hike, an expedition. And so we had to go to the Marchers School, which was just down the road. And I just remember the fear. It just all came flooding back. I sat in the classroom, and it just all came flooding back. And I soldiered through it. I just sat there, gripped my teeth, whilst my head was buzzing, everything was throbbing, and everything was going. I felt like it was going mad, if I'm honest. And after that, it just seemed to appear every so often. And when I got to college, the first couple of times I was in the doing history of art, I felt it come over me, and then I managed to hold on for the entire hour and a half or however long it was. And then it suddenly occurred to me after doing 3 of these lessons, it suddenly occurred to me that I could survive these lessons. I don't know why they were happening. All I knew is they were happening, and I needed to somehow control them. And that was the last time I had a panic attack until, for years, for many, many years. I didn't have one throughout the 3 years I was at university. The other 2 years I was at college. I didn't have one for many, many years after that. And then it suddenly reared its ugly head again. And I got them bigger and more... And they were more scary as well. I felt like I was actually... I would sit there thinking, why am I... It was like looking into the abyss of madness and just thinking, why am I going mad? Why am I going mad? Why can't I stop myself from going mad? And it wasn't until my first panic attack with my with my girlfriend at the time. She said she had a few issues as well, but I don't know whether they were quite as severe. And she helped me. She did a lot of research into panic attacks and how to avoid them. And so whenever I had a panic attack, we used to go through the stages, try and calm my breathing down, and because panic attacks were a bit like a cycle.
They are. You're right. They are.
And then you get stuck in this cycle, and for whatever I remember one panic attack I had, and I couldn't find the rescue remedy that I used to help me make everything just feel a little bit.
Sorry to interject here, Ben. Just so the listeners know. Obviously, anybody who's not from the UK, or it might be the same in other countries, I don't know. I don't want to come across ignorant here, but we have a thing called rescue remedy. It's a herbal remedy. It's not like drugs or nothing. It's like a herbal remedy. It's a natural remedy, and it is actually really effective. I never believed it before until you told me about it. I tried it, and you're right. It does work. It's basically it's like a little pipette on a small bottle. It's got a load. It's just all natural ingredients, nothing crazy, no alcohol in the respects of like you're going to take it and then suddenly get stopped, breathalyzed, fail a breathalyzer, nothing like that. And you take a few drops, don't you, on your tongue. I'd heard of it before. You kind of switched me onto it more recent years, but I'd heard of it before when a wonderful guy I know was getting married, and I was the best man for his wedding. And just in the run-up, obviously, because you get the pre-nerves, because you want to make sure everything's perfect and everything else. There's a lot of pressure when you set up a wedding. I appreciate and understand that. And he was using it, and he was. I mean, it helped him loads. Again, not somebody who would necessarily do lots and lots of panicking, not because he was stressed, because he was, oh no, I'm getting married, I hate it. Far from it. It was just such a wonderful and so excited, because sometimes, I don't know about you, but a panic attack can be triggered even if you're overly excited, even if you're really happy about something.
Overly stimulated.
Yeah, an overstimulation. And I think that was the case with this particular person. And they were basically using the rescue remedy, and I was like, what the hell's that? Because it looked like he was just taking these pipettes of this stuff. And I was like, dude, are you taking drugs right now? He's like, no, I'm not doing drugs. It's this rescue remedy. And then obviously later on, get to know you. No, I mean, I knew at the time anyway, but like later on, you started telling me about this rescue remedy, and yeah, very useful. So sorry, please carry on.
So, and I couldn't find. I was in the midst of a panic attack, and I couldn't find. Well, it had just about started, but it wasn't quite as bad until I couldn't find my rescue remedy, and then that just made everything worse. And all I could think was just going around in my head was, I need a rescue remedy. I can't find my rescue remedy. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? I need it. I need it. I need it. I need it. And just that thought process went round and round and round and round and round and round. And then I just thought, right, I've got to deal with this without it. So I went through all the stages. I did all the breathing. I forced myself to think that something outside of finding the rescue remedy. So, for instance, like the sky is blue, or I have a cat. So, where's Hagen? Where is he? Just to break that cycle, make myself a little bit calmer, and then it slowly worked its way down again. But slowly but surely, I've started dealing with it a lot more successfully. Just keeping calm. When I feel it coming on, I know for a fact I can deal with it now. So half the battle is knowing that I can deal with it. There is it's not going to get the better of me because I won't let it. I know I won't let it. And I went away on holiday recently, and with my brother and my two brothers and my dad, and we got a little bit inebriated. And
layman's term, shit-faced.
That's putting it lightly. And as we all know, alcohol isn't the best for a situation that's quite emotional, because we were talking about the past and things, and everything got a bit heated. And I started having a panic attack. And my dad said to me, "Oh, don't be so silly." He had no idea what was going on. My brother James knew what was going on, but
I hate that.
When you see it happening in front of you, you kind of you panic yourself. You just kind of think, what's going on? We've
both seen each other having panic attacks, haven't we, in various stages. I mean, I remember having a really bad one. It started in the basement of your house, because you used to live in the basement, not in a scary kind of psychopath way, serial killer way. He just had a really cool basement room, and we played computer games and things. So, and we'd been watching a trailer for a new computer game coming out on an Xbox, and we were like, "Oh yeah, got to get that." And for some reason, I think I hadn't been sleeping very well at the time. My sleep pattern was really bad, so I was a bit strung out, and I started feeling a bit weird, like you've described there. And I started getting that feeling that you start getting the cycles, because it's all about, it's a bit like a needle getting stuck on a record and it's repeating the same thing, or a CD skipping or something. And you walked me back to my place because I was proper and I needed that distraction. And I remember just saying to you, "God, just talk to me, tell me anything." And it puts you on the spot, and I was putting you on the spot, and you were like, "Okay, what do I know what to do." And I mean, you eventually got into the swing of things, but it does, you're right, it puts you on the spot. And just going back to what you were saying before, that with your dad, going, "Don't be so stupid, knock it off." The reason I was going, right, it's not an attack on your dad, far from it, because I've met your dad, he's a good guy, but it's more to do with that kind of attitude that because people who don't know, like you say, and this is again what Panic Stations UK is all about. It's about breaking down that boundary with people. Anybody wants to listen, because you don't have to have any mental health issues. You might be just interested in them, for God's sake. And that's, again, if this can educate in any kind of way, this is brilliant. But the worst problem was when people see you go through these things and they're like, "For God's sake, what's the problem? Oh, just snap out of it, you're fine." It's not as simple as somebody just turning around to you going, "Oh, stop panicking." That doesn't help. In fact, it puts more stress on the situation.
It's even worse.
Yeah.
And in fact, it made it 10 times worse. Because right after I calmed myself down using all the techniques, it set it off again. And then so I decided to leave, or try and leave. I ended up going back again, and the second time it just got even worse and worse, and then I had a third one, and because sometimes you get tremors,
Yeah.
for lack of a better word, after the initial one, and if something's still upsetting you, that can make each tremor turn into another one, and another one, and another one, until you start. And by the time I decided to just to cut my losses and leave, I was so worked up that I couldn't even find my way. We'd been there a week, and I couldn't even find my way back to the place we were staying, because I was so panicking. I was just I couldn't work out where I was going. Where am I going? So I managed to find my way back, and we sat outside. Everything calmed down by then. Everything was really calm. My brother gave me a hug. He said, "It's all right. Are you okay now?" And I said, "Yeah." And I turned to my dad and I said, "The worst thing you could ever possibly do is to say, 'Don't be so silly,' to someone who's having a panic attack." And he said, "I'm so sorry. I didn't realise that that's what was going on." And we made up and everything was fine. Then we went, a couple of days after that, we went scuba diving. And if anyone's been scuba diving, it can, if you've got anxiety issues, it's not one of the best things you could possibly do.
Yeah, tons of water on top of yourself while trying to breathe in a very small tube.
Yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
I can
it's
gather.
a little bit. If you're worrywart, if you're anxious, if you panic a lot, if you anything that is going to set it off, it will set it off. And so much to the point where even my two brothers and my dad, they don't suffer from panic attacks at all, I don't think. Even them were starting to feel a little bit panicky. So it's something that you need to think about if you are going scuba diving.
Important safety tip there, and don't ever go scuba diving if you're having an anxiety attack.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is kind of weird since I've been skydiving.
Yeah, you jumped out of a plane.
Yeah, I couldn't go scuba diving.
But then again, this is the kind of crazy thing that happens with anxiety disorders. I think it's just something like, it's really weird. I have had the craziest stuff happen to me, not set it off. I've been sat by myself thinking about something really minor, and it's kicked it off. I'm like, what the hell's this come from? Why am I suddenly so freaking stressed? And I think it's the same thing. I mean, if you work yourself up to something, definitely. I mean, because it sounds like you and your family were kind of having a bit of we're about to go scuba. Was it the first time you've been scuba diving?
The first time my dad's been scuba diving before. He felt really quite panicky when he first went scuba diving, so he wasn't too bad this time. But me and my two brothers, we found it a little bit, well, more than them. But they were a little bit, whoa, this is really quite strange. I'm not, because you're moving around, you're trying to get your breathing right, and we had to do this thing where you take out the mouthpiece, and you blow, and then as you're blowing, you put the mouthpiece back in. It's to clear out the mouthpiece and to get everything circulating again, just in case you have to take your mouthpiece out. Otherwise, if you don't do that, as I found out, you end up swallowing a whole load of seawater.
Oh God!
Which isn't tasty. So as soon as you put the mouthpiece back in your mouth, you've just got this dry, salty taste in your mouth, which makes everything 100 times worse. And so I felt like I couldn't control myself. I was in strange surroundings, and I had no control over my movement, over my breathing. I couldn't see anything. There was weird wobbly things going in front of the mask, which was probably seaweed or fish, I don't know. But when you're kind of going, oh my God, what's going on? You don't really have time to think, oh yeah, that's a pretty fish, that.
Yeah. Well, that's lovely. I'm going to die. Oh, that's nice.
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
So I got up and I said to the guy who was the instructor. He was a lovely guy. He was a bit like a he was like a foreign Diamond Geezer. He was really cool, and he was so just brilliant about it all.
That's
he
cool.
said that it happens. You're not the first person, and you will not be the last. So he was so accommodating about it. His assistant, on the other hand, was a bit didn't have any idea what was going on, and he I don't want to sound nasty about him, but he made it a tiny bit worse, because some kids came over, and as the instructor said before we went scuba diving, he said kids always tend to not fear, because adults have got so much going on in their head. There's always something that stops them from thinking, I can do this, because they've lived life, everything is going on and swimmingly, and then they're chucked in at the deep end.
That's
and those
interesting.
kids don't have a problem because they know no fear. They haven't got any fear. They haven't got anything to base that on.
They haven't got the inhibitions.
Yeah,
there,
exactly.
because they're used to having the positive reinforcement of going, well done, or traditionally this is obviously for most kids, they have the ability to be positively reinforced. So when they get a chance to go out and do things, they're like, yeah, jump feet first.
Yeah,
but as an adult, I think you're more, like you say, you're acutely aware.
Your brain gets in the way.
Yeah, exactly, and it gets right into under your skin, and you're aware of your own mortality. You're aware of exactly what could go wrong. Like, a kid's not going to think, oh, well, the oxygen tank could explode and then blow my back in pieces. They're going to be like, cool, we're going to get to see some fish. Hey, fish. Cthulhu. Just anything they can see under the sea. All good. Adults, on the other hand, tend to, like you say, they're acutely aware, and they've got those blocks. And I think that's a very, very good point.
And to prove this point, the assistant that we were with gave he took the canister off my back, carried it, gave the mouthpiece to a kid who came over to see what was going on. He went down in the water, and he came up, and he was beside himself with excitement. He just couldn't believe it. Wow, it was amazing. And I'm standing there going, a kid can do this, and I'm standing there and I cannot physically go under the water again. So it just made me feel even more. But the thing it wasn't like any other panic attack I had ever had, because I felt more annoyed. And as my counsellor said to me when I told this to her, she said, because you were allowing yourself to feel annoyed. You weren't, when you've had a panic attack before, you haven't you've tried to hold it back, or you've tried to stop yourself from letting it go, and which has made it even worse. But this time you just went, no, I feel annoyed that the fact that there's a kid standing in front of me and he can do it better than I can. And so I sat on the beach, my hands were buzzing, shaking. I was looking down at my hands thinking, this is the weirdest panic attack I've ever had. I don't know whether it was actually a panic attack or just something else. I don't know. I still don't know. But that was the last time I ever had a panic attack. Or what I thought was a panic attack. And now, when I think back to that moment, I think, and I feel the panic encroaching. I just think,
is that like a trigger moment, or like for thinking that, or you on about just in general if you feel like the panic?
If I start feeling a little bit panicky, I think back to sitting on the beach, looking at my hands, feeling them buzz, and I just think, it's not going to work. Not this time, and it makes me. I almost think I laugh at it now. I think, you're not gonna stop me from enjoying myself. If I'm walking in the sunshine, you're not going to stop me from enjoying my life anymore. That's it. I've had it. And ever since then, I've never had a panic attack. I've not even come close. I felt the slight bubbling of the panic arise, but apart from that, I haven't felt anything like I have. And I think it's just got to a point now where I just think, no more. I'm not having that anymore. Which has also, because I've had depression as well, through different stages, it kind of helped with that as well. It made me feel better about myself because I knew I was in control. I wasn't going to lose control, and it made me feel better about myself, knowing that after all this time, after all the experiences, I've finally got a grip on it, and it's not going to stop me from going forth. And it just makes me feel... I was unemployed for a while, which was I felt very downtrodden. I felt very depressed, and throughout that was whilst I was. We went on holiday whilst I was unemployed, so it just kind of, it was all just. I think it all just came to a point whilst we were away, and now I just feel like, after going through counselling, and my counsellor said that she thought that was just the turning point, the tipping point of my entire life. Everything had come to that point, and it's just gone. That's it, done, finished, no more, not happening anymore. That's it.
That's fantastic in a really strange way. That's like,
and it helped me. Yeah.
Just as a time frame for the listeners, how long ago was this? The first panic attack. How old were you?
I was 14.
14 for the first panic attack. That's the one.
13, 14.
13, 14. That's in secondary school in assembly.
Yeah.
Okay. And you kind of, until you left that school, and you went to another one, and things started to get a little bit better for you. Yeah. It sort of petered away.
Yeah, disappeared.
You go to college, everything cool.
Came back for the first couple of weeks, and then that was it.
Interesting. Getting ready for new, sort of like the anxiety of starting fresh in a different place, all different stuff. Understandable, relatable, because obviously it's all anxiety
all
and
brand new.
Yeah. And then what about university? Because I know you went to uni.
First week or first 2 weeks, I didn't really have any panic attacks. I just felt I was very, very low.
You were more acutely aware of your emotions. Yeah.
Yeah. To be honest, I just let all my emotions fly in the first week because it was a strange new place. I didn't know anyone. A friend that I thought was going to be by my side decided not to go to university in the end anyway. So I was stuck. I thought I was going to be there with friends, but I was stuck on my own.
It's kind of like a safety blanket in a way.
Exactly. But in a way, I'm glad that it worked out the way it did, because I made some absolutely fantastic friends at university, and a lot of them helped me through what I was going through, and made me realise and pointed out some quite interesting points, some character points about myself, and I thought, yeah. So I got to know myself a bit better whilst I was at university. And then I think that was the last time I felt really like I had a place, like I was accepted in a group of like-minded individuals. After university, it just kind of slowly went downhill. And then, I mean, I have met people like yourself over the years who have similar interests and so on and so forth, but the gathering, the amount of people at university was quite nice to be around all those people most of the time, and you bounce ideas off each other and so on and so forth, and then after university, I kind of thought I was a little bit, I wasn't alone, but I just felt I missed that structure. I think that's what it comes down to. The lack of structure outside of university was very daunting. And I'm not a structured person. If anyone, people like yourself who know me really well,
Yeah.
I'm not a structured person. I can't structure. I need someone else to help me structure it.
Anybody who knows the man that I know, for the listeners, he's Benjamin Coker, mild-mannered man. To all the people that love him near and dear, he is SDC, the man, the Legion from Another Region, the one-man army. Basically, anybody who knows him, and I think this is fair to say, I'm not overstepping a line here, is that Chaos is like your middle name.
Yeah.
It's your disorganised chaos that falls in a beautifully scattered pattern. So you bring chaos, but in a good way. It's fun. It's fun.
I feel like I'm a chaos wrangler.
You wrangle chaos.
I can ride the line between madness and normality. Just really quite.
Just straddle it.
Just straddle it nicely.
Where most fall off the unicycle while riding that tightrope, you stay firmly planted, firm.
Straight going along it.
You could put a spirit level on your head, baby, and it'd be good.
Yeah, but I think that comes from years and years and years and years of torment, of just mental torment. I mean, my family background isn't. My parents were badly suited.
Do you mind if I just stop you there?
Yeah.
Not to be some like, oh, I'll just stop you there. Ha ha ha! I'll steal the interview. Far from it. This is great, and I really appreciate it, and I'm sure all the listeners appreciate it as well. Just going back to some of the context, obviously, just to give a few things context absolutely. For the listeners for what you've already said. First panic attacks 13-14.
Yeah,
it clears up. It kind of, you get the anxious sort of stages just starting college, but it goes. Same with university. Then you come back from university. How long? So how old were you when you finished uni?
I was 23.
23,
yeah.
Okay. So essentially from the age of, say, 13 to 15, say, you had panic attacks, then you really didn't have a panic attack till... How old do you think you were when it came back?
When they came back, I was probably... I may have been about 24, 25, probably about 24.
About 24, 25, okay.
With my first serious relationship outside of... Well, my first serious relationship. I had girlfriends at uni and...
but this was a more solid relationship, like more adult. Yeah, I know exactly what you're on about. You have relationships at uni and college and things like that, and you think, oh yeah, this is really serious, and then obviously it's when you leave these places where you're deemed as oh dear, I can't believe I'm doing this, air quotes, adult. That's when you go into those kind of the normality cocoon, I suppose is the best way of describing it. So you're saying about 24, 25. How long do those panic attacks last? On and off up until this holiday?
Yeah.
Okay. So to give some kind of scope for the listeners. So 24, 25 they come back. When was this holiday? How long ago?
It was last year.
Last year, but roughly what time?
It was July.
July. So almost a year ago. Yeah. So almost a year ago. Okay. And how old are you now?
Well, at the time I was 32.
So you're 33 now.
Yeah.
I know how old you are but there's only literally about 3 months difference in our ages. Yeah. But like again for the listeners, so you're 33 now, like myself, young 33s. Dashing young, like spry 33s, I may add to all the listeners. Yeah, of course. But really, for almost from what you're saying, then essentially, say we go back by a year from since like this moment in the sand, the moment you're looking at your hands and you realise, this is my moment. Like this is ridiculous. This has got to stop. Okay, and you have that realization. So you're on the beach, you're looking at your hands, and you're realizing this. And this is your thing after going to counselling as well, just to analyse that moment.
Yeah.
You and your counsellor have come to this conclusion that this is the thing you look back at, and it helps you,
Yeah.
which is great. This is affirming
Absolutely.
thing. So that happens. You're 32. We take back maths, not my strong point. So bear with me, dear listener. Okay, so we're going back from when you first started having 24, 25. So roughly 7 or 8 years,
Yeah.
really, isn't it? Give or take.
Yeah.
7 or 8 years of having panic attacks on and off,
Yeah.
and then you're talking about the 2-3 years at school.
Yeah.
So really, on and off, you've suffered with panic attacks. Well, not on and off, but if you put the whole amount of time you spent with this worry and these anxieties, that's got to be like 10, 11 years. And, I mean, if you go back again, you really, give or take, 20 years on and off. Within that space, you've had these moments. Now, I was saying before, I suffered... I still do now and again, but again, like you get that trigger point, and after a while, I don't know if you found this, when you identify these things that cause it, you start working on these little methods that you found to kind of combat it. We'll talk about those in a minute, because people might be listening to this going, get on, I'm suffering with these, I don't care about all this stuff, help me. And we will get to that point with some of the tips and tricks that we have learned, so just bear with us through the ramble, okay? So, I mean, I myself, I was like, as I say, 21, 22 and 33, so I've roughly about 11 years, so really quite similar in the respects of like time frame to the amount. I don't know about you, but when you look back on these moments, do you just get angry at yourself for being worried? Because I get twisted. I get twisted about getting so pissed off about the fact that I'm like, why can I not just enjoy my life? Why is it in the back of my mind like this? Again, nerdy comics thing. It's almost like being Bruce Banner.
Yeah.
The Incredible Hulk, right? And he's that nervous guy where he's going, I've got to keep myself in check, because if I let it out, I'm going to wig out, and when I get clear-headed, I have no idea what happened. And not in a case of going, you see a red mist, you do anything violent, far, far from it. But it's the idea of that transformation into this anxious thing. It's really hard. That has stopped me doing so much stuff with my life. And I resent myself in certain respects, because I've stopped myself from having a fun time with friends, or my friends are all going out and they'll go, oh, come out, we'll do this, and I'll go, yeah, come. And at the last minute I've had to go no, because the anxiety goes, ugh. It happened to me recently where I let down some really close friends of mine, and it really cut me up, because I got really, really anxious, and to the point where, like I say, one thing will trigger it off. I went to put on a suit because they were getting married. I went to put on a suit. My wife was downstairs waiting with our little girl, and everything's all good. I put on the suit. Because I'd put on weight, the suit ripped. Again, Incredible Hulk moment, I guess. And that was it. That was the thing that sent me off. I was like, I've got 10 minutes to get a new suit and get to this place. We're not going to do it. We're not going to do it. Oh my God, I've let them down. I'm a horrible person. I can't believe I've done this. And then, again, you start going through these circles, like this stuck record, broken CD thing, and it's going round and round and round and round and round in the circle. And I ended up not going because I was so angry, and I was so angry at myself afterwards, because I've let these people down, and they're good people. They're good people, and I let them down. I was like, I didn't go to the wedding. I'm a bastard. I can't believe I've done that. And it's frustrating, and I get resentful of the time I've lost. Now, a positive, sensible way of looking at it was, don't think about the time you've lost. Okay, think of the stuff that you've gained from learning from this experience. That's the best way of looking at it. But even though I know that deep down, I still get angry at myself. I get angry at myself for not being carefree. I have family members. My brother, awesome guy, love my brother to pieces, and he's a very carefree guy, and he can deal with stuff, and I'm so envious of that. I'm so envious of the fact that my brother can deal with stuff. And I mean, with your family members, do you get, because your brother, your one brother is so laid back. Sometimes you have to check his freaking pulse.
Yeah, he's horizontal.
Yeah.
But I found out recently that he deals with it in a completely different way. He has felt that he's felt exactly what I felt, but he deals with it in completely a different way. He doesn't avoid it. He just deals with it in a completely different way. And I was thinking, because I always used to be quite envious, like you. I was envious of my brother, of both of them, especially one of them who just seems like he's just cool. He's the epitome of cool. And the other one, I found out that he suffered from the same. He had the same things, maybe not quite as bad, perhaps, but he just dealt with it differently. So when the person that I always thought was better than me, in a way, wasn't actually better than me.
Wow.
Which was really, really eye-opening. And he said that he was envious of me.
Really?
Yeah. So we've been envious of each other for years and years and years and years, and we didn't even know it.
That's mental. So I don't think I should be throwing that kind of terminology, but again, realistic. We want to be realistic here. We're not going to be, and if you hear squeaking, it's us moving on chairs. I have rickety furniture.
But going back to
you were saying about your family life, because I mean you've kind of conquered this milestone, and like again, I'm envious of you for being able to do that. That's a brilliant thing. Now, you were saying before I rudely interrupted and went on a mad tangent, you were saying before about the fact that your background, because this I think is very, very pertinent to,
very important,
to any issue that anybody has, anxiety, depression, anything. I think it all has a basis from, because all we really are a collection of moments, and I think they influence us and how we're going to be. It certainly does. I mean, like if you're ill from eating a certain type of food, natural instinct is you don't go back to that food again because you know it's made you really, really, really ill, and you have to kind of work yourself up and realise you're not going to be ill every time you eat it because maybe it was cooked bad or whatever, but you get a mental block. And I know it's a very basic way of looking at it, but it's certainly something that definitely happens. Now, again, with upbringing, because my upbringing has rickety moments. It's not as bad as some of the people who are willing to come forward with some of this stuff, which people will be hearing, and perhaps some of the viewers, the listeners at home, for the people at home.
Viewer over there.
The view, that viewer in the window, even though we're 2 flights of stairs up. Oh, run! Even though there's that, you have. It's very, very important. I think you're right. In the fact that things that happen in your past definitely shape you.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
And when you were about to say, we're going to go into that any second, just bear with me. When even the not so terrible backgrounds can have a profound effect on you, because it all goes down on the type of personality you are.
And what you see.
Yeah.
Everything, when you're a kid and you see stuff that...
Sorry, I'm just going to lean back and get a drink. Please carry on.
That's fine. When you see stuff as a kid, it really hits you for six. It sticks in your head. I remember, just to prove the point, I remember reading about Clive Barker, who said that the thing he found most frightening, he'd seen horror films, everything, the thing he found most frightening was in a Rupert the Bear book, and it was a tree with legs, a Christmas tree with legs. It's a crudely drawn Christmas tree with legs, and it scared him. It scared the bejesus out of him. It haunted his dreams for years. And when you're a kid and you see these things going on TV, but especially in your own house, you just sticks with you for the rest of you. You'll never get rid of it. It sticks you, and for personally for me, because of the type of person I am, I'm not one to go and turn into and let it dictate what I'm going to do. Well, in a way, I have let it dictate what I'm going to do. I'm not going to let it dictate it in a bad way. I'm going to use it in a positive way.
That's the trick, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. That's the trick. Learning from these mistakes, and I always think that it's not just the mistakes you made as a person; it's the mistakes of your parents as well. That you've got to learn from their mistakes as well as your own mistakes. And I think if you're a good parent, you allow your children to learn from your mistakes as well as making their own mistakes and learning from those mistakes. So forcing a kid not to follow in their footsteps could be just as detrimental. Like, for instance,
it's almost like running from. I see what you're saying. It's kind of like running away from one extreme to the other,
exactly.
Isn't it? So yeah.
I was always lucky. My parents were very accepting of my gifts because I draw. I'm an extremely creative person, and everyone was very accepting of that. My brother's a very accepting, a very creative person, but he's also very good at academic subjects like maths. But he wasn't given the same. He wasn't offered the same opportunities as I was, and they tried to stop him from pursuing a career in music.
Right.
Because at one point he wanted to be a musician. I mean, it's worked out how it is now, and it's worked out for him very well.
Nice.
But there's been ups and downs, people trying to make him be something that he's not, trying to force him to do stuff that he doesn't enjoy doing.
Like trying to put like a square shape through a triangle hole. It's just not going to happen.
And also living their lives through him. I wasn't going to change. That I think they knew that pretty early on, that I was set in my ways, and try as they might, they were never going to change that. I'm a very unique creature, as someone once put it.
If you mean you're an experiment like the rest of us, I think there's no such thing. I don't think, and it's only because we're such good friends I can say this stuff, guys. I wouldn't just be saying this to anybody, but I love the guy like a brother, so that's why I can say this kind of stuff and get away with it. Once the show's over, he'll be crying, but it's fine. But all joking aside, I don't think there's anything normal about anyone.
No,
I don't think that is. I think we trick ourselves into thinking what's normal.
Try as you might think you're normal, but you're not normal.
I think there's varying degrees of what I like to call the human condition.
Yeah.
And somewhere along that weird, that's not even a line, it's kind of like, it looks like a snakes and ladders puzzle box. Like, so it's kind of going in all different directions.
It's kind of like a smell. Some people are more potent than others.
You heard it here first. We're coining it here, smell therapy.
But yeah, some people are more eccentric than other people, and for people who aren't quite as eccentric, it takes a little while to get used to them. And some people have the ability just to accept people's natures.
Yes, definitely.
But
I've known that from places where I've worked. I've been in workplaces where they've been so accepting and going, shit, he's having a panic attack, and they've known exactly what it was, and they've been fine with it. And then I've been in places where people are like, what? And again, I remember one line manager years ago turning around to me, just going, just for God's sake, just snap out of it. Stop. Look, stop it. Stop that right now. And I'm like, yeah, that's going to work.
I think the problem also with that person is starting to feel exactly what you're feeling, because I remember when a girl fainted in front of me at school once, and she just dropped, and her face she had kind of a weird vacant smile on her face as she dropped to the floor. And I've never forgotten it, but it just kind of, when you're standing there faced with this thing that you're not sure how to deal with, some people are either very accepting, like you said, just know exactly what's going on, even if they don't know what's going on. They're very, there's a problem, right, I need to sort it out, I need to help. Other people just go, what? No, I don't like this.
Knee-jerk reaction.
Stop it.
Yeah.
And they start panicking themselves, worried that it's going to happen to them. It might be contagious or something.
You know what? I've never seen... That's really interesting. I've never actually thought of it as like this contagious thing. Like they're going to catch it. But you're right, actually, in many ways. I know the manager that was having to go at me a few years back, just saying, stop it. Stop having a panic attack right now. Like, they're so used to being authoritarian in many ways. Not that there was anything wrong with them. That particular manager is lovely, a very lovely person. But it just so happened at that particular time they were giving me a bollocking at work regarding an incident, and they as they were giving me this bollocking, because they hadn't let me speak and explain what had happened, because it wasn't actually my fault. As I was trying to tell them this, and I couldn't get in edgeways, it was kind of like feeling trapped, like I'm just getting abuse, and I felt cornered. So the anxiety attack started, and I started having this panic attack, and they were just going, oh yeah, just stop that right now. And it's like, that won't work. And it shocked them. You could tell it shocked them. They were kind of like, oh, if I tell them to stop, then that'll be done. Because they're, again, managers, they're kind of used to being in an authoritarian position. Maybe it's something to do with, I think that's a blanket armchair psychological sort of psychological rationale behind all this, and I think that it'd be wrong of me to put it down like this and just do a generic blanketing of this. But it almost feels like managers in positions of work, or people that psychologically are geared for management, perhaps are so used to controlling the situation that they're used to telling people to do something and it gets done. So maybe it comes from something like that. Again, that's complete armchair psychology point of view. It's no bearing of any actual fact. It's just kind of my kind of rambling sort of generic guesses, I guess. But I mean, when it comes to acceptance, it is really hard to gauge the kind of people that will understand or not. Really hard.
Absolutely.
I mean, how your dad kind of, once he'd seen you said before, once he saw you having a panic attack, once he'd said that, how's his reactions been with panic attacks? Has he seen them before? I
have no idea. I don't know whether he's seen them or not. And I said, I think I remember saying something along the lines of, have you ever had a panic attack before? He said, oh yeah, I used to get them all the time at work. But I'm not sure if it was the same, if he understood it as the same as I was trying to explain it. And he dealt with things. My dad is very, if he doesn't like something, if you tell him to do something, he just won't do it. He's not one of these people who messes around. If he says he's going to do something, he will do it. If he thinks it's the right course of action, he will do it.
So he's very focused.
He's very focused. Yeah, very incredibly focused. I always said that my dad was like nylon, very focused, very straight, knew exactly what needed to be done. He's been a project manager. He was a project manager for a long time, and he was perfectly. he was ideal for that at the time. And then he became a teacher. So he became this... When he puts his mind to it, he can do whatever he wants.
Isn't that the perfect thing to think about, though?
Yeah.
About all of this stuff. You put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything. You can do these things.
Yeah.
And panic attacks, anxiety attacks are certainly mind over matter, I guess.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
you're right, yeah.
You just got to snap yourself out of it. Because, I mean, well, there's always some way of... I mean, everyone's different. Everyone's going to have a different way of stopping the cycle, the panic cycle going around and around. Mine was breathing exercises, just making the breathing calm, and then just thinking about something really inane, like the Incredible Hulk is green. Or grey, depending on which time.
See, another nerd. Another nerd, one other, Scooble Gobble.
The sky is blue. The wall is green. Very inane, very tiny things. But it just snaps you out of that. It snaps you out of the cycle. Just instantly. You still feel the panic, it's still going around in your head. But the more you focus on the fact that the sky is blue, and you're going, yeah, it is blue. Yeah,
that's interesting you say that, because I had a counsellor who once said, if you're feeling edgy, you're feeling low, go in a place where there's lots of colour in the respects of walking along. Go for a walk, look at trees, they're green. So yeah, that's a very, very similar thing. A very similar thing.
It's And also, I remember we had a conversation not so long ago about chaos, as in mess around the house where you live.
Oh God!
It's a very big contributing factor to your state of mind.
For the listeners at home, there's a bloody good reason why this podcast isn't a visual thing. I'm just not ready to broadcast myself. I have bad enough image issues at the moment, let alone I want to broadcast my fat ass on through the airwaves. But more importantly as well, my house is a state, and it's because of several things. Moved in, my little girl was born. This is the second year in the house. My little girl's almost 2. My wife and I work shifts. We run around like loonies, and we're still trying to settle and redecorate a house where we didn't have a chance to redecorate and settle it because we were too busy being first-time parents. So our house isn't bad. Like, yeah. I mean, I'm sure you'd say this.
I've seen a lot worse.
Yes, that's right. You have
100 times worse.
You don't see this. I'm threatening Ben off site. No, but seriously, like it does affect it though. Going back to what you were saying about like the mess. I know that if it's a mess, the house is a mess. It does my head in. And I mean, you can't stop those things when you've got a young family. It's just going to happen. But it fries my head. Stuff like, okay, well, I understand there's toys everywhere. I can deal with that. But the fact of the matter is, I still need to finish redecorating there. But I haven't got time. And that sticks in my craw. The fact we haven't redecorated our bedroom. We haven't decorated the bedroom. We never had a chance to yet. And there's stuff we still need to do. And like certain rooms are only a little bit finished and a bit not. And that sticks in my head, and that mess has definitely affects my mood in the respects of, like, if I get a bit snappy, if I'm getting stressed, I get snappy. And my poor long-suffering wife, when I get snappy, she can take the brunt of it. I'm not the kind of guy to start going, oh, how dare you? You know me, I wouldn't do that. But I might be a little bit short. She might go, Chris. I'm like, what? I'm just asking, are you alright? Do you want a cup of tea? I'm like, sorry, darling. Yeah, you are alright. Yeah, yes, please. I would love a cup of tea. Thank you. Really appreciate that. But that snappiness, I think, sometimes comes from like you say, the chaos when the place is a bit ruined. And I think that does affect, like, where you are. I know that where we record the podcast where we record Panic Stations UK is in the what I have lovingly called the man cave. It's basically the spare room full of all my nerdy stuff because I don't want to pollute the house with it. So basically, when this room is tidy, it's great. But unfortunately, because of all the chaos and the things that happen, because life is life, all the shit gets dumped in here, and I'm under constant stress about it. And for God's sake, it's always a mess. I keep tidying it, it's always a mess, and I'm not actually living in the bloody room. So yeah, you're right. But I mean, yeah, as you say. So anyway, again, going for a bit of a wide tangent.
Mad tangent, yeah.
Your mum, how's she been with panic attacks? How does she react?
She bottles it up. She's very. If Dad is like nylon, Mum's like wool. She's just all fuzz. But she holds in. She bottles everything up and holds it, and then it explodes. In whatever way. But I'm very, very. I think I'm very more like a lot more like my mum than I am like my dad. I don't bottle things up as much. Well, in fact, I don't really bottle things up at all. On
the other hand,
I've learnt that it's just as bad, and seeing what it does to your parents as well. That if you've got a parent like that who bottles everything up, you can see how much of an effect it has on them.
And it does manifest itself physically. You do physically see it. It physically changes a person. Yeah.
And they can deny it all they want. You can deny it, but the people who know you will always see it. They will always see something going on, and 9 times out of 10 they might not. Your friends, your family might not say anything. So you've got to kind of plug up the courage to kind of speak to them about it, perhaps, or just get that ball rolling so you can kind of get yourself out of that rut. And I know how hard it is to get out of a rut. I spent many days and nights and months and weeks and years even in ruts and at the bottom of downward spirals, just clawing my way back to the top, only to go, oh look, some oil, and then whoosh, all the way back down again. But it's just finding that courage to go, right, I'm not going to have this anymore. I'm going to climb my way up. But you need help as well. You need help from your friends, your family, people who you can trust, people who and I think we're very lucky. We've got friends and family who are who go through the same thing.
So lucky.
So understanding.
So lucky. Well. Yeah, definitely. I think you're nailed on the head. You need a support network of people. You can't go through this shit alone, because you can try and be as focused as possible. You can go, my mind, I will power over this. I'm sorry, utter nonsense, right? In the respect, not nonsense that you can get through it, but in the respect that it's so much harder to do it by yourself. And if you're lucky and you have a support group, you find these understanding people. And I think, again, the stigmas that you get, if you come forward and go, actually, I'm on antidepressants and I have an issue with anxiety and depression or stress, or I'm on antipsychotic medication, or I have to take this medication because I don't feel right, or whatever the situation is, whatever issue that you have. I think we live in a society that still judges. It does still judge, and that's a podcast in itself. But that's definitely something we'll touch about in the future. But I mean, end of the day, you need that support network. But who do you choose for that support network? This is where I'm going to ask you if you'd like to come back onto Panic Stations UK
absolutely.
for a future episode. Because obviously I'm very aware that we've always been going for 2 hours, folks. I could talk all night. But I think your iPhones or your devices where you listen to podcasts or God knows what would explode, or you might even just get bored. So what we'll do is, if we talk about the support network in another episode,
absolutely,
I would really appreciate that. Maybe if you come back and we do it for episode 2.
Yeah.
Are we all for that? Episode 2, we can talk about support networks for people that have anxiety issues. Now, we'll talk a little bit more, obviously, about family backgrounds in part 2, if we may.
Yeah.
But I think for now, let's put a pin in it, because again, this is the teething stages of Panic Stations UK, and because the subject matter, we're never going to have a short podcast, because why would you have a short podcast when you can learn so much more by listening to the longer one? So stick with us. Episode 2 will be support networks for anxiety, and it will also be regarding a little bit more about prior issues with anxiety and previous experiences. Hopefully get some more guests on. We never know. I might do another little segment with some few people. Maybe I can get them at the same time. Maybe not. We'll see what we can do. Before we go, though, we'll just take a quick break. And when we return, we will do a few techniques that we have found helpful. Because I promised, and we were going to do it. A few techniques that we found helpful in staving panic attacks at bay. So stick with us and we'll be right back.
Let our hands slip apart, oh, in the path of a drunken dream. In the shell of the turning sea, I'll see you turning away from me. Let our slip apart, oh, like moths turned loose in the dark. The song of the morning blue, you'll see me turning away from you. Sinking heart, the sap of a morning touch. Our world is turning away from us, turning away from us, turning away from us.
Wow. That piece of music is done by a very, very dear friend of mine who I have known since secondary school. I don't think he gives himself enough credit. I think he's got an absolutely beautiful music style. That's Robin Blackmore. You can find his stuff on SoundCloud, Robin Blackmore Music. He's absolutely stunning to listen to, and we'll have a bit more from him to close the show. That song was called Let Our Hands Slip Apart, and I think we all agreed that was actually beautiful. What do you reckon about that, dude?
Yeah,
it was nice,
just
beautiful.
Yeah,
really, really, really nice bit of music, and just hearing that, just like yes. And again, as we said before, creativity is an important part, I think, of do I dare say it like this, mental stability? Yeah. I don't think that's
getting it out.
Getting it out. I think mental stability is a little bit dramatic, but yeah, it's definitely it's an outlet, isn't it? And much in the same way as doing this, I think is a great creative and productive outlet for myself and everybody else who's involved with Panic Stations UK and want to help people. At the same time, I think the music and poems and things like that hopefully people will be sending in will again prove this creative outlet very, very important. It's a way of letting go of emotion. I think some of the best music has been and film and art, everything, literature, you name it, has been born from pain, from happiness, all these base emotions that essentially are the cornerstones of mental health. So definitely really good to listen to. And again, if you want to send anything like that in, I don't care if it's thrash metal, man. In fact, go for it. I would love to hear a bit of thrash metal. And if people don't like it, I can give them a forewarning beforehand and tell them how long the track is, and then they can kind of skip that part of the podcast. Or if they really want to listen to it, go for it. I'm not going to stifle anybody's creative side. So, if you want to get in contact, please do. If you want to be a guest on the show and if you want to just air your stories or talk about some of the stuff that you've been through, more than welcome. It doesn't matter if you don't go, oh, actually, I've suffered from panic attacks all my life, but you've done panic attacks. No, we haven't. 2 hours does not encompass the entire scope of anxiety issues. If you want to come in and say, actually, I found this helped, or this whatever, you have some tips for any of the other listeners, or if you want to turn around and tell your story, all good. Please, I welcome you. Open arms. We welcome you. Become one of us. So give us a shout at panicstationsuk@yahoo.co.uk. That's panicstationsuk@yahoo.co.uk. Now, as promised, we said before, we're going to talk about some of the ways to deal with anxiety issues. So, some of the things that we have found to deal with when you're having a panic attack from our own personal backgrounds. We're going to just share with them briefly now. So, if you want to take it away, Mr. SDC.
Firstly, distraction method is very good, whereby you can either get yourself sitting in front of something that can distract you, or get someone else to distract you by talking to you. I've always found that Groundhog Day is a very good distraction for me if I'm feeling anxious, if I'm feeling low. Any time of the day, whatever happens. The film. Okay. Groundhog Day. Or, as we've discussed before, just sitting with someone and talking about other stuff. Just general...
definitely helps.
Happy,
that helps for me, yeah.
And just, as we've done many times, just talk about nonsense.
Yeah.
Really?
Oh, have we talked nonsense many times.
And go from random things. Also, it might sound counterproductive, but also talking about what you're going through.
No, you see, now I don't think that's counterproductive at all. It's good because, I'll tell you why, that's another coping technique in itself, entirely, which I found worked, and it's quite a common one. You're basically talking your way through the situation. So you're accepting it. You're taking ownership of that anxiety. So if you're having that panic attack and you're like, okay, how do I deal with this? You're going, right, I feel weird. I feel like I'm going mad. Because it does. It feels like you're going insane. It's horrible. Like I said before, I said earlier, before the interview, from my own personal experiences, it feels like somebody set a bomb off in your brain and all your thoughts are floating above your head. And you're trying to reconfigure them, and it don't quite fit back together because they haven't settled back down to earth. So you're still very much in chaos, and you're very confused. It's horrible. You feel like you're going mad. But here's the thing: if you think you're going mad, right, you're not actually going mad. Here's something for you: you're not mad if you think you're mad. If you get my drift, because people that are mad don't realise they're mad. God, that's crazy trying to explain that in itself. I feel like I'm in Alice in Wonderland. But more importantly, people who are actually clinically mad will never turn around and say, oh, I'm mad. You know, generally speaking, There are the occasional ones who go, "I'm mad, me," and they might be mad. But generally speaking, if you think you're going mad, or you're going, "I'm mad, aren't I?" You're not actually mad. You're just, when you have an anxiety attack, there's a chemical reaction in your brain. You're stimulated by the subconscious physical responses that you're doing. Like I said before, I didn't even realise I was breathing rapidly. And it creates certain physiological changes in your body. Okay, this is the science about it all. It also causes different changes in hormones and all sorts of things, and activates a thing called a fight or flight response. And that fight or flight is in every living creature, and it goes back from way back in the day when we were all cave people. Because I won't say cavemen, that's sexist. I'm only joking. It really is a bit weird saying cave people, but I'm going to say that anyway. So it goes back to when it was cave people, and they had to hunt and gather and everything else, and they were like, how do what I hunt and gather and do everything else and do my thing and keep myself alive? And if they'd be hunted themselves, they would know whether let's go for a fight or let's flight, let's run. So what happens is your heart rate increases to increase your blood flow to certain muscles like your legs and your arms, so you can leg it, and it's why you want to run out of there really quickly, and it's why you have adrenaline flowing. It's also probably why you kind of semi-lose, not entirely, but like semi-lose a little bit of cognitive thought. I don't think that's too far out of it.
Yeah.
Like, again, with the idea of the floating words of your head, and you will go off and you'll try and run away, and you'll be like, oh shit, I've got to get out of here.
Because your brain, the blood stops going to your brain and starts going to your legs.
Yeah.
Which makes your brain.
And you're more in the
well.
primal,
Yeah.
aren't you? That you're in the more baser parts of the instinctual parts of your brain, and that's where it comes from. So there is a science behind all this stuff, and how it's activated this fight or flight response has been made more sensitive depending on the situation, and it can come from all sorts of things, from psychological trauma, like an incident that happened, like in a childhood incident, for example, or an incident that happened later on, or maybe, like I said before, with my first one, the perfect storm of having trauma from coming out of an abusive relationship, drinking, so my body was physically just and on top of that I'd had a relative die, and on top of that a friend in critical condition. So the way I was feeling, I was relating that to, if that could happen to my friend who's in hospital, who's this wonderful human being and didn't do anything to anyone, and just one day, bang, this thing happened, surely it could happen to me. And that kind of logic, yes, it may or may not do it, but that, you know, I might go into my front room one day and find a monkey with a machine gun. It doesn't mean it's going to be there. So you get that kind of point of thinking, well, okay, that is what's going to happen. And they're the triggers. These are the things that you become overly sensitized to. So the distraction technique, like you quite rightly said, like when you were saying you find watching certain films like Groundhog Day really useful. Talking yourself through it is equally useful, because you're talking yourself through the thing. So if you're going, right, I'm feeling like this, because if you can still, if you're with it enough to realise that I'm quite fortunate that most of the time when I'm going through this, I can remember what's triggered it. And sometimes I'll sit with my wife and she'll check my pulse for me, and she'll go, it's a bit fast, you need to slow it down. And I'll be going, right, I'm feeling like this because we haven't paid this bill yet, this has been going on, this happened at work, this happened in our personal life, and it's got to me at this point because I want to get this done and this done and this done. So this is why I'm feeling like this now. And yes, I feel like shit now, but just keep breathing, sit here, just relax, and you'll be fine. Or go for a walk, everything will be fine. Remember, nobody has ever died from a panic attack. Nobody has died you don't die from panic attacks. You feel like you're dying, you feel like shit, you feel real bad, but you don't die from them. And they're awful. They are awful. And you definitely have our hearts on it, because we've been there. But that distraction of walking yourself through it is very, very vital. Very vital. What else have you found?
Touching on going for a walk, I found going for a walk, preferably with someone. But if you haven't got someone with you, just go somewhere. For instance, I used to walk into the town centre from where I live. I would walk into the town centre. I would walk around the town centre and then back on myself and sort of go a different route and then go home. By the time I got home, I was calm. Nothing too strenuous, because if you do anything like if you go for a run, some people like going for a run because
exercise is good for you.
Exercise is good for you. It releases dopamine.
Yeah, it's the endorphins, isn't it?
Endorphins.
Yeah.
Which makes you happy. So, exercise can be a good thing for it.
Don't do it too much though, because if you have a sugar crash and you like go, oh my god, and you suddenly go, I actually feel worse. It's just a case of just, light exercise frequently. Don't go crazy and push yourself too far.
Never go crazy.
But if you have the physical constitution to run a marathon, by all means, go for it. So whatever floats your boat and whatever what your body is physically capable of.
Going back to distraction, I don't know whether it's distraction. If you say to yourself, I suppose it is, the sky is blue. It will take you out of that cycle. Something very inane, just changing the thought processes. Again,
because it's like being stuck on that skipping disc, that skipping LP, that skipping CD. It's exactly that.
And when you get to a certain point where you can do it yourself, but if you haven't, if you're just experiencing it, you haven't had much experience in dealing with panic attacks, it's always good to get someone who understands that what is going on and can help you trigger a change in your thought processes. So they can ask you a question. Again, what colour's the sky? What colour's the Incredible Hulk? But change it differently, so your thoughts are just going there, and they're not stuck in a loop. Which is, the loop is the bad thing. That's the thing you need to get out of.
You need to shatter the loop.
Yeah.
It's an anxiety circle, I like to call it. Yeah, it's funny you should say that, actually. I've had somebody work that on me. My counsellor did that with me, and I've actually used it on a person that I know who was having a panic attack, and it's really, really useful. What you can do, you basically get them to stare at you. Like, for example, if you're watching somebody having a panic attack, okay, a good thing you can do is you throw them the curveball. You look at somebody and you basically lock eyes with them and you just go, right, you need to listen to me, focus on my voice, look at me, breathe nice and slow. Now tell me, what colour socks am I wearing? It's really weird. I find adding humour to it is the key, because the person suddenly goes, what? And then it throws them. It throws them for a loop. They're like, oh, colour. Red? Brilliant. Okay. Do you have laces in your shoes? What? Yeah. Okay. What colour are your eyes? I know what they are. Again, it sounds really weird, but it's just it locks them out of it, and it's really useful. It's a really useful tool.
It could be one of the best.
Yeah, it's a good
solutions.
One. It's a good one when you're with somebody, like you say, you go
definitely.
for a walk with somebody, and they're there, and they can activate that with you. That's brilliant if you can.
And if you can say, for instance, going for a walk with someone and also triggering that thought process, it can change it even faster. It can make it it can lower the panic attack even quicker.
Yeah,
you're doing two things at once.
Especially if you're with somebody you're really comfortable with, it really helps. It really helps, because that reassurance of being with somebody that you know, That's always good. You know, if you're having a panic attack and you're by yourself, that's bad in itself. If you're with somebody though, or you can get to somebody you know, maybe via a phone call, or just quickly like, okay, they're a 5-minute walk around the corner from my house. I've got to keep it together. Walk, put on some headphones, listen to some music, concentrate on your breathing, one step at a time, left, right, left, right, left, right, back to that person's house. You talk to them, and then the person that you're comfortable with, and it's kind of like an anxiety buddy, like, you know, because they
That's
work.
a very good way of putting it.
Yeah, they really help. They really help, and I think that, like you say, if you can walk and you can do the distraction technique, you're doing two things at the same time, and you're also being distracted, and that's going to break that anxiety loop. It's going to just knock it out, and that helps big time. Another thing I found is ice. This is a good one told to me by somebody I knew many years ago who suffered from anxiety issues. And when I felt like I was getting one, she said, get some ice from the freezer. And I'm like, what? Suck on the ice. And I'm like, why? Why the hell would I do that? Because your mind will be thinking about the coldness of the ice and it snaps it out. So that's a really useful one. Another way of doing it as well is if you've got a mint or you know, like a boiled sweet or something, you can concentrate on eating that one thing. I'm not going out binge eating, going, right, I'm going to get 20 packets of crisps and I must eat them as fast as I can. That's one way of doing with it. It's also one way of a surefire road to diabetes or something like that and overweight. However, what I would suggest would be like sucking ice, sucking a mint or something along those lines, because that distraction will knock it straight out. There's the breathing techniques, of course. There's the breathing techniques vary. There are so many you can look up online. They are everywhere, but they're really useful. Now, you can do 3-3 breathing. 3 times 3 times 3. Because essentially, when you breathe calmly, it resets your nervous system from that fight or flight mode, that anxious mode, to realizing that your body isn't naturally, because you're physically taking cognitive control over your breathing, so you're forcing yourself to do a certain thing, and eventually your body will be doing it naturally, and therefore it will reverse the physiological side of the issue, where your fight or flight response goes, I'm breathing like this now, I don't need to run away. So breathing techniques are very, very useful. Everybody has their own one. Please feel free to look up online the breathing techniques. There's plenty of them about. They're very useful. I found 3x3x3 simply because you're not breathing in too long, you're not holding the breath for too long, and you're not breathing out too long. But because there are some people that say breathe in, count to 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, hold 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and release 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I need to breathe 10. So when you do that, that's one way of doing it. But it might be too long for some people, and that's fine. It's finding the one that you're naturally used to, the comfortable one. Okay, and you breathe in through your nose, you hold it if you can, and then you breathe out through your mouth. The 3x3x3 is 3 seconds breathing in through your nose. So 1, 2, 3, hold it, 1, 2, 3, and then breathe out 1, 2, 3, and again you repeat it. So it's kind of like it's not too short, but some people might find it a little short if they've got quite a big lung capacity. The other way of doing it is there's a yoga way of doing things, which is belly breathing. I don't know if you know much about the yoga stuff, and that's when you're basically breathing your air into your belly. And it sounds odd, bear with me. And do you know how you inflate your belly so it looks like you're pregnant? You're like, "Oi," or if you're me, you just, naturally look that way. So you're breathing in, and as you inflate your belly, you're breathing in as you inflate it. You hold it for that extend, like the 3x3x3, and then you're slowly making a conscious decision to push the air, all the air like a balloon, coming out of your body via your belly, pushing like the belly air out, as it were. So you kind of go like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Your belly ends up looking like Mr. Greedy from the Mr. Men, and you hold it and you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you push in that air out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like a balloon, slowly deflating it. And you can control that breathing method. And again, you're focusing on that, and it's that distraction technique, and it's resetting the fight or flight, and it's really helpful. If you're having a really bad panic attack, sometimes the yoga stuff will work, but if you need a more instant hit, when you feel like you're not breathing, putting all the air in your belly might not necessarily be the most sensible thing to do. It's whatever you're comfortable with. However, if you feel like the increase of anxiety is making you feel like you're on the edge, belly breathing all the time, fantastic. And then you just concentrate on your lung breathing. If you're having a really bad one, you're like, right, I've got to really do something quick because I'm freaking out. You go, okay, hold your horses, try, slow yourself down. Be aware that you're getting uptight and you're angry, and you're like, all of a sudden you can't feel your hands and your knees and and your feet and everything else getting pins and needles. And that, honestly, that can come in through several reasons, through physiological change. The fact that you're rapid breathing, so the oxygen isn't going through your body as well as it could, and
hyperventilating.
Yes, so that's the hyperventilation. Yeah. It can happen because basically your nerves are shot because you're so nervous, and you've had a release of endorphins or God knows what into your well, not endorphins but adrenaline in your body, so that can cause it as well. So there's loads of reasons, okay? And a lot of people, like I've done in the past, think, shit, I'm having a stroke, or I'm having a heart attack, or I'm having that. Okay, before doing that, if you know you suffer from panic attacks, then it's very good, very, very logical and likely it's a panic attack. And the way you deal with that with the breathing, again, I wouldn't recommend doing the belly breathing if you're not comfortable with doing it. Look it up online, belly breathing, you can do it, and it'll teach you how to do it if you want to see some videos on YouTube or whatnot, or other breathing techniques other people have found, like 7-11, where you breathe in for 7 seconds and you breathe out for 11. There's loads of different ways of doing it, but breathing techniques, definitely a must. Definitely something that's really, really useful. The other thing you were saying before, we touched upon it. You introduced me well, you didn't introduce me, but you were the one who swore by it.
The wonderful thing called Rescue Remedy.
Oh yes, tell him.
It's a very handy thing to have if you're, say, going to a job interview, or I always bring it with me on journeys when I'm going on the train, because I'm a bit of a worrier. So I sometimes worry about, am I going to catch the train on time? Is there going to be a problem? So I just I have Rescue Remedy in my pocket. If I start to feel a little bit anxious about something, I just take a few drops, put it on. I usually put it under my tongue, and let it sit there, and let it go into your system, and it just takes the edge. It doesn't make you feel. It's not a cure. It's not a perfect cure. It's not going to make you the panic go away absolutely, but it just takes the edge off it and makes you think, yes, it's okay, everything's going to be fine. You might get a little bit of a flutter when it enters your system, and then you start feeling a little bit more calmer, a little bit more contented, a little bit safer. It's brilliant stuff. Do check the bottle, just in case you're allergic to anything, because we wouldn't want that to happen.
Good God, no.
So yeah, just check the bottle, make sure that you're not allergic to it.
Christ, yeah.
If you are, then it's probably not the best option for you. But yeah, if you're not allergic to it, it's brilliant stuff. Just always, if you know you're gonna do something that you know you're going to maybe feel a little bit anxious about, take a bottle of Rescue Remedy with you. Hence why it's called Rescue Remedy. It's just there
and I'm gonna
to save you.
And you've just made me realise something very important. Haha. So some of you, if you are allergic to any of these things, I'm talking about mint and boiled sweets, and for some reason ice and and Rescue Remedy, because you have every allergy under the sun, you poor individual. Right, if you find yourself going, you drink it and you're like, oh, those jackasses on Panic Station UK, they told me to take this and now I'm in the hospital, I have an anaphylactic shock. In your face, read the label. That's our get out clause. No legal rambling for us. All joking aside though, yeah, read the label, for God's sake. If we don't take anything that you don't know, that you know, if you don't have allergies, great. If you do, check things. I'm hoping that you'd be sensible enough to check things anyway, but you did hammer a certain sensible point to point out there. Not so sensibly advertised by myself. Incidentally, Panic Stations UK are not responsible in any way, shape or form for anaphylactic shock caused by any of the ingredients in any of the things that we may have suggested. Always read the label. We good? Yeah, we're good. Right, okay, carry on. Find Rescue Remedy. Where can we find this miracle stuff?
Rescue Remedy, you can find, if you go...
Is it common? Is it common to get hold of?
In every health food shop that I can think of. And they sell it in most, in Boots.
Whoa. Hang on a second. Don't be giving out names for like companies that haven't given us any advertising revenue now. Because I'm all about the money. No, I'm only joking. Carry on, please do.
But seriously, find don't. It in any good pharmacy, such as ones in your favourite supermarket or high street area. And it also comes, it's not just in the bottle, so if you feel a bit embarrassed about taking a bottle of something out and using a pipette to pour liquid into your mouth, it also comes in chewing gum now as well, and perhaps tablets as well, chewable mints. So yeah, it's not just in bottle form now. You can pick your favourite way to use it now.
You know what? I just realised something else. Rescue Remedy's a brand name. I'm going to have to go through the whole damn podcast and bleep out the words Rescue and Remedy. Damn it! They didn't give us any money. We could have been missing out on Coin Man, on Serious Bank. No, we're only kidding out there, listeners. And this is the whole point. We're trying to be relaxed and have a bit of fun with it, because you got to have a good sense of humour. Because I think if you don't have a good sense of humour, that could seriously mess with you even more. Okay, you're only on this earth once that we know of. That we know of for definite scientifically. And I'm not going down that road, that theological discussion. That's no problem with anybody's belief system. But again, you always got to have a good sense of humour about stuff. And we aim to please with lame jokes and silliness where we can. But the subject matter is serious. But you know, we got to take it with, like anything, a spoonful of sugar. Yes,
absolutely. Can I just add, there's nothing wrong with a little bit of free advertising.
Well, I don't know, it depends. It depends. Are we getting paid? Hey, if the makers of Rescue Remedy or any pharmacy wants to get in contact, you give money to us, you can get in contact with us. It's panicstationsuk@yahoo.co.uk. But all joking aside, we're going to wrap it up now, because this is an exceptionally long podcast. It's our first one, so please forgive the rambles. But again, you know, it's interesting subject matter, and I think these are going to be long. They'll vary in length, but as a first one, I suppose it's going to be a jumbo-sized edition. Join us next time for episode 2. We'll talk about the anxiety sort of experiences. We're going to hopefully get some more guests in. If we can't, you know, not a problem. If we can't for that particular episode, that's fine. If you want to be a guest on it, panicstationsuk@yahoo.co.uk. And obviously as well, we'll talk about support networks, what it's like being open with family, about like having an anxiety issue, things like that. And again, we'll have the lovely Ben Coker, or as you will soon get to know him, because he's my friend and he'll soon be all your friends, SDC. So just to say goodbye, thank you very much for listening to us. And before we play it out, is there anything you'd like to say, Ben?
No, I'm all good.
Man of very few words, unlike me, verbal diarrhea. So, everybody, stay safe, have a good one. Remember, it does get better. You are not alone, and not in a kind of extraterrestrial way in the issues that you have. It's all good. Remember, you've got that support group. We're going to aim to be part of that support group at Panic Stations UK. And if you have anything you want to be on the show, again, Panic Stations UK at yahoo.co.uk. And that goes with recording material and shout outs, podcasts, and God knows what. And speaking of which, we're going to end this with an absolutely belter of a song by my good friend Robin Blackmore. Please visit him on SoundCloud with SoundCloud, which is Robin Blackmore Music, and fantastic song again. So just enjoy it. This is called The Moving Moon. It's absolutely beautiful. Same time next time. Take care.
When the light turns red, there's no warning then. When the light turns red, there's no turning round. We don't know ourselves or what we shout at the moving moon. When the people in the street get under our feet, there's no turning around. When the light turns red, heaven help us. When the light turns red, heaven help us then. When the light turns red, we lay our beauty down. When the light turns red, we turn our insides out. We can't keep ourselves from spilling out in the face of them. When the people in the street get under our feet, there's no stopping them. When the light turns red, heaven help us. When the light turns red, heaven help us then. When the light turns red, heaven help us. When the light turns red, heaven help us then.